Hello and welcome to Nakik World Podcast, coming to you live from the beautiful country of Switzerland. I am your host, Stacey. Welcome back to our listeners all around the world. Guys, we have made it through Christmas, and that is really something to be thankful for. I know that it wasn't easy for many of you out there listening, and I want to really thank you all for your messages and your emails. It's absolutely awesome when our listeners connect with us, so thank you. Let's get into our topic for today with the theme Pause and Reflect. I have the perfect weather for this theme today because it's snowing outside and the view from where I'm sitting is absolutely incredible. All I want to do is curl up with a warm cup of tea and reflect on everything that has happened this past year. But before I share and review my experiences of 2020, I need to go further, rewind the tape a little bit, all the way to 2019. You are listening to Nakik World Podcast, coming to you live from Switzerland. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Nakik World Podcast platform. Our email address is podcast@nacinchina.com. I would say that for me, 2019 was actually an extremely challenging year. I can't put into words the stress, the frustration, and just turmoil that I went through in 2019. You see, I was completing my PhD at the time. And for those of you that have been through this experience, I'm sure you don't even want to listen anymore because it is just a mountain of a journey. The paperwork, your publications, dealing with professors and administration workers as well, it was a complete nightmare. And I'll tell you, I ask myself regularly, Stacey, why are you doing this to yourself? But you see, besides my own ambitions in my career, it was my mum that had the most conviction and belief that I will graduate and I will gain that title. Her faith was incredible. But unfortunately, I only focused on the visible issues in front of me. And when you only see the problems in front of you, it's very hard to keep your sanity, to keep your faith. I went through every emotion in 2019. Not only because of my academic stress, but also personally. My relationships suffered a lot because I was so stressed and frustrated with my own situation that, in my opinion, I wasn't a very good friend or sister or daughter or even fiancé in 2019. Oh yeah, did I mention I was separated from my partner for almost the whole year? Yeah, we had to wait on various departments for papers to be approved and sent back and forth as we were preparing to get married. As if I didn't have enough on my plate, I was also trying to organize a wedding. Sorry, a bicontinental wedding, actually, because his family was there and my family was here. You can't imagine the stress that came from all of that as well. Point is, we are almost in 2021, but I still shudder when I think of 2019. I questioned everything in 2019. I felt like I was working so hard, but nothing was going smoothly. I did the best that I could, but things were somehow stuck. All of this took a toll on my health as well. One night, while I was glued to my laptop trying to finish my papers, I got a sharp pain all the way through my left arm and towards my chest. That's when I realized I need to stop. I mean, this was ridiculous. I'm still young. I try and take care of my health as much as I can. How can I be getting sharp pains like this? I ended up going to the doctor for ECGs and other checkups. And because I live in China, I also went to hear what the traditional Chinese medicine doctors have to say. And they all had the same answer. Stress, anxiety, build-up, and mostly sleep deprivation. I even remember saying to the doctor in a very frustrated tone, "Yes, but I don't have time to sleep." He laughed at me. I wasn't amused, and afterwards, I decided to take a walk back and finally take a serious look within. This was the beginning of a lot of hard lesson learning that I would like to share with you before we start the next year. You are listening to Nakik World Podcast, coming to you live from Switzerland. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Nakik World Podcast platform. Our email address is podcast@nacinchina.com. As I walked back from the doctor's office, I was relieved that they didn't find anything more serious. But I did realize that I need to make changes. Why is it that we always need someone else to show us what we should already know ourselves? I think I allowed all of the stress in my life to become the main character in my life. It ruled me, my moods, the way I treated others, to the point that my own health was suffering. How ridiculous is that? Yeah, now in hindsight it seems ridiculous, but it was an important life lesson that I had to learn. To stop, to listen, what is my body saying to me? And also, very importantly, not to be ruled or become a slave of my circumstances. Because in the end, we are all in control. But we don't realize it really. We make so many excuses that justify a lot. Like, I don't have time for this or that. I can't go to sleep on time because of this and that. It's just not right, and it won't bring a positive result. So finally, it was almost the middle of November 2019, and I was utterly depleted. In German, they say the word erschöpft. Ich bin fast erschöpft, which translates to I'm almost exhausted, but it basically means I'm at my very last. And that's how I felt at the end of 2019. I was still waiting for papers to come through. I was waiting for the announcement from my university about whether I passed the external review. And I was sick of waiting. Meanwhile, my best friend was working in Shanghai at the time, and her birthday was coming up. I decided to take a break and go and visit my good friend and enjoy a nice weekend with her. It was the best idea I ever had. It totally took my mind off my own stress. And guess what? On the last night of that weekend, just before I would fly back to my university, I got the good news. The wait was finally over. After a whole year of struggle, my professors were booking the dates, and I needed to finally get into GAE for the biggest meeting of my academic life. It was finally here. And actually, within 2 weeks, it was all over. Everything went perfectly, and I learned that it is time to start living my life in gratitude instead of allowing my circumstances to rule me, and to do it with intention, from the insignificant things to the great things. You are listening to Nakik World Podcast, coming to you live from Switzerland. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Nakik World Podcast platform. Our email address is podcast@nacinchina.com. So what do I mean by living my life with the intention of gratitude? During all the struggles I endured in 2019, I constantly felt out of control, and the frustration thereof was so unbearable. Let me share a very simple concept. We are actually all in control. When we allow things to control us, like our circumstances, for example, that is when things go off the track. At the same time, there is only so much that is in our control. We shouldn't be concerned with the things that we have no influence over. I couldn't control my university or my professors. I was dependent on them to graduate. But I could only do my part. The rest was up to them. Now, does that mean that I should lose sleep about things that are not in my control? Absolutely not. This is such a simple concept, but so many of us still complain and are negative about things that are simply out of our hands. So what is the point? What is the point of stressing over things you have no control in? Let me break it down. We all have obstacles, challenges in our lives, whether it is in our career or at home or anywhere in our lives. Our job is to do our part and to do it well. More than that, we simply cannot do. And with this realization, I walked into 2020 with full vigor, ready and excited to accomplish great things. Remember, I sacrificed in 2019. I had little to no social life. I didn't travel anywhere for the holidays. I spent the entire year focused on my university work and my career. I assured myself that in 2020, I can make up for it all. I made lists of all the places I wanted to finally travel to, all the things I wanted to do. Wow, I was so looking forward to 2020. You are listening to Nakik World Podcast, coming to you live from Switzerland. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Nakik World Podcast platform. Our email address is podcast@nacinchina.com. And here's where it gets a little bit interesting, because even though 2019 was extremely hard for me, December 2019 was awesome. I finally graduated with my PhD in economics, and also I got married. My Chinese professors congratulated me, saying that I have shuangxi, which translates to double happiness. I was overjoyed. A year of so much, and finally the reward at the end. I couldn't be happier. But I started noticing something worrying in the local news in China, and internationally too. I remember talking to my family in China about this outbreak that happened in Wuhan. There was something about it that just seemed more serious than anything before. Now, when I was around 10 or 11, SARS broke out in Hong Kong and mainland China. And at the time, my dad and brother was in Beijing. They were lucky to have caught one of the last flights back home just before the borders closed. So my family did have some experience dealing with these kinds of outbreaks. But this was different. We started sharing news reports with one another, avoiding big crowds, wearing masks. This was months before wearing masks became mandatory. As far as I was concerned, it was time for me to take a nice holiday in my beautiful hometown of Cape Town. And after the hard year I had in 2019, nothing was going to stop me in January 2020. I remembered I boarded my flight from Paris to Cape Town. I was wearing the K95 masks at the time, and everyone was staring at me as if I was carrying a deadly plague. A flight attendant asked me, "Madame, vous êtes malade?" which means, "Are you sick?" And I proceeded to explain that no, I am not sick, but rather protecting myself. Thank you very much. It's remarkable how things changed so quickly in the weeks thereafter. That is it for today's episode. Please tune in next time for part 2. Until then, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Nakik World Podcast platform. Our email address is podcast@nacinchina.com. Nakik World Podcast is broadcasted twice weekly, every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Beijing time. Until next time, goodbye from a beautiful Switzerland.